Hey everybody, welcome back to Visual Novel Book Club. I'm your pal Slowbeef, with me, of course, my good friend Polahoko.
Hey, yeah.
My good friend Rosella.
Hello.
My good friend Jim.
Hey, everybody.
My good friend Oren Ronan.
Good evening.
Oh, shit. We were so close. 5 out of 6, but fortunately Turbo could not make it, so we're getting there. We will have quorum. We will have a full jury at some point. But for now...
We don't even have a full jury for this child, so...
That's true.
It's true.
Who wants to start? What happens here? Because it's some good stuff here in the old Great Ace Attorney, right?
Well, we're coming off the trails of the last case, which, I wasn't here for that podcast, but I do want to say I really like Drebber. Drebber's an interesting character to me.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I mean, not really a good guy,
I like
but I liked how he's just kind of modeled after a robot for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it's after the case, and we are in what appears to be a hotel lobby.
We do get this, the usual pre-chapter little...
Oh, yeah, the usual, Sherlock Holmes, the game is afoot. But yeah, the introduction there is... It introduces an odd advertisement and a bunch of people with red hair. We learn in the last trial that Genshin, Kazuma's father, was involved in a mass murder, and this trial is, I'm assuming, going to be about him and his impact. But after that, we seem to be in a hotel, and we're receiving some special guests, which are Susato's father and someone I didn't expect to see again, the judge from the first case, the very first tutorial case.
We were told he was coming, though, last time.
Well, yeah, they were, but I didn't either remember it or... I was surprised, okay? Shut up.
Seishiro Jigoku.
It is still weird to see him, because at this point, we've seen him outside of trial, but he was still wearing his judge robes. But now when we see both him and Susato's dad, they're both, all dressed up like dapper British gentlemen.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's a good look, frankly.
Yeah, and he looks significantly younger. For some reason, when I saw him looking younger in the sort of in the sort of Western outfit, that I was like going back and like, didn't he have gray hair before? And I went back, I'm like, no, he didn't. He didn't have gray hair in the original artwork, but he looked older and more like, more official and more serious in his judge's robes.
Big guy, worth saying,
Yeah. I mean, that beard goes with those judges' robes. It kind of clashes with his gentleman outfit, but it looks okay.
You also get a lot more personality out of him right now. So he's not that serious anymore. He's just joking around, reminding Naruhodo who he is by striking his hammer and calling him guilty.
Yeah, I'm really glad that the judge in these games is more like of a character and not just like, oh, I'm the clueless old man. You have to tell me everything.
Santa with a gavel.
Yeah.
I don't know what he banged it against, but he sure did.
Yeah.
In addition to being the judge, he's also like the minister of like public affairs or something. Like he has some high up rank in the government.
Right.
So, which is why he's here, I suppose.
That's right. For the symposium.
Yeah, he was the one that was invited for the symposium. He just dragged Mikotoba along.
Yeah, because he's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So,
which is apparently exactly what he did when they went to London in the first place.
Right. Yep. So anyway, we meet in the Great Waterloo Hotel in London. There are no achievements for examining things in the Great Waterloo Hotel.
Right. So we don't bother.
Right. Well, I didn't know that at the time. But,
Would you have bothered though?
No.
Naruhodo still can figure out how the modern world works.
It's a nice looking hotel. It's very fancy.
He's mystified by the chandelier, if you look at it.
Well, Naruhodo's mystified by a lot of things, though.
Yeah.
It's true, actually, yeah.
But he's also been there for like a year now. You didn't see one before?
What? Imagine the world through Naruhodo's eyes, where every day is an adventure.
Unless it's a scary adventure, in which case...
yeah, unless it's scary.
What's that, a ghost? And it's like, it's not. It's a sheet. It's, it's a... Oh, but it had eye holes. Like, it didn't, Naruhodo. I'm sorry. But
Ruh-roh.
poor Susanoo.
Look, that's Toby.
Let's see here. So anyway, like, we still haven't talked to Kazuma, right? It's like still just like, yeah, he's been kind of alone, and we sort of bring that up when we talk to them, right?
Yeah, they didn't even know.
But before that, we straight out like bring out, oh yeah, your friend that you went to England with 16 years ago, he's totally murdered some people, right? We just bring it up straight away.
And they're like, yeah, he did. I mean, we tried to defend him when he was accused, but, you know, they kind of wanted us back home, so I was like, sorry.
Also, we never told his son what really happened, but he suspected something was wrong.
That's probably why he came here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we should have told him, but anywho. How are you? Did you try the biscottis? I think they're...
But yeah, they also didn't know that Kazuma is still alive.
Yeah, they knew his body went missing.
I don't know if I buy this. Like, it's like, definitely the judge didn't know.
Definitely what?
That the judge, I don't think the judge knew. But I don't know if Mikitoba is being completely honest, because it seems like he keeps lying about a lot of stuff.
No, it sounds to me like no one actually did know, because we later do find out what happened with Asogi when he went missing. And he wasn't brought into England by anyone, he just got there on his own.
I think the point is just like, how could you not know? You know what I mean? Like,
the fact that he was missing, the fact that it was so, like, they covered it up and they had the fake grave, just because, like, oh, oops, we lost the corpse. I don't know. It just seemed, to me, it raised some questions. I think there is a reasonable explanation for why he got there and what he's doing there, and that information wouldn't get back. But they just seem suspicious to me, and their actions to cover all this up.
It's like a depressing weekend at Bernie's.
They do a good job of playing shocked, I think.
Yeah, to be fair, a lot of people are suspicious as hell right now. Mikitoba definitely. Sholmes still has stuff that he's not telling us. And even Kazuma has stuff that's like, that's what every other person in this chapter does. It's like, well, I'm going to give you a little bit, but I'm still not going to tell you.
Yeah, everybody has an agenda. Everyone's working with some kind of information that we don't have.
Well, it's only case 4.
I mean, we should try that shit. When they ask us for evidence, we'd just be like, you know what, I'll give it to you tomorrow.
It's a state secret.
I think that's this is what the square button does, actually.
So, did anyone notice the big foreshadowing line that they had in this conversation?
Actually, no. Which one's that?
That, like, as a detective story reader, that caught my attention immediately because there was no reason to mention it otherwise. And that's that when they got into England, Mikotoba had to have his luggage checked, but the judge didn't because we have diplomatic immunity.
Yep.
I missed that.
And you don't mention something like that unless it's going to come up later.
Right.
Why write this line at all?
Unless, because then Danny Glover can like, you know, he can tell him diplomatic immunity, and then he can shoot you and say just been revoked. You know.
Yeah, but it's always funny too, because it's like they're complaining about their travel, and they're just like, "Oh, I had to wait so long to get through, while you didn't because of diplomatic immunity." That was
the TSA pre, like, of the day, you know.
and they also like point out that the judge's luggage is very large. You actually see it in the scene, and apparently he didn't have to get it checked, so there's something in there. I honestly don't remember what. I played this game before. I don't remember. If this actually comes up later, but I think it will, because this was a very suspicious line.
Yeah, well, I agreed. They telegraphed it, yeah.
Yeah. It's just this ventriloquist dummy.
I've been working on really funny, offensive English stereotypes in my ventriloquist dummy. Yeah.
The ancestor of Jeff Dunham.
Yeah.
And then they get the picture taken.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's important too.
No, it's just a nice little thing that goes into the court record.
Yeah,
yeah, and the luggage guy was one of the previous jury members, right?
Yeah, if it's not the same, it has to be the same guy, right? Because these people keep popping up again.
Well, you know, only 10 people exist in this country.
It's true. That's why they have such a problem with the jury pool.
I think it's just their random number generator is really bad. Like, it's just like a lottery that they spin, and it's all like a bunch of 5s.
Yeah, today you are a luggage person.
Yeah, they haven't invented random number generators, so they just roll a d12. They're like, oh, we keep getting the same 12 people.
We were only able to sign 12 people. Yeah.
What do you call it? And then let's see here. So okay, we get the picture, and then they leave, and then it's like off to the races. No, it's off to. We're gonna go to.
Well, we can start at several places. We can go to the Sholm's house and to the Strongheart.
I think I did that actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So which one do we want to go over first?
You can also get, I think, the trophy for looking at the shovel all the times here, because this is the last time apparently that you can.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the attic.
I didn't get it yet. I have to go back and do it earlier. But
so yeah, I went to the attic, I looked at the shovel, and I got a trophy. So
it's called Digging Deeper.
actually, I think if you're not playing it on a Sony console, it's called an accolade.
Yeah, I'm playing it on the Switch, and just like an internal trophy system.
Gotcha.
It's so weird because I'm doing the same thing. They just pop up and then they go into the ether someplace. Like they're just gone.
I think it's in one of the menus you can go into from the main menu. You can see all of them.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it like you have to get accolades to get like the different costumes?
If only there was some kind of federated blockchain solution to prove that you had a trophy or an achievement of some. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the brainworms burrowing deeper into my cerebrum. What were we saying? Anyway,
Let's start with Strongheart's place, because that's shorter and
Yeah, it is.
have less to do with the rest of the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you go there, and what happens there? You just talk to Strongheart a lot.
Yeah, Strongheart is there, and Von Zieks is there too. Yeah, so they're talking. But I think like basically as soon as we're like, hey, hello, we're also here, I think Von Zieks leaves.
Right. And basically Strongheart was telling Von Zieks to get ready for the forensic symposium, which is still happening despite the fact that we inadvertently, brought out a black stain on the entire concept of forensic science and has set back the country's progress by at least 10 years.
Yeah, sorry we got your entire forensics team arrested for either murder or conspiracy.
Yeah.
not really our fault on that one. I mean,
Well, I mean, he admits it. He's like, no, it's all good. It's all good.
Well, yeah, he admits it and then shoots daggers immediately. Like, no, it's perfectly fine that you undermined my entire life's work. I mean, how could I object?
I mean, at least he's like, look, it's gonna put me back some years, but I'm going to fucking do it.
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe get people who aren't so corrupt next time. It's,
Well, one thing that I kind of noticed, and Strongheart is really hard to read, like, but one thing that I noticed is that when we first talked to him some time ago, actually, no, I shouldn't talk about this yet. I'll talk about this further down.
We do ask him about Kazuma, and he says that he just appeared in the United Kingdom one day, and immigration caught him, basically.
Okay. That's right.
and brought it to him, and he decided to take this young Japanese guy, put him in a mask, and give him to Von Zieks as an apprentice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Naruhodo immediately pokes holes in it. Like he's like, yeah, really, the mask wouldn't throw people off too. What?
Yeah, he says like, it's like, well, Von Zieks is so racist. I didn't want to just give him a Japanese apprentice and then, have to explain.
Yeah, he was so racist that there would be a ton of questions about getting a Japanese, what is it? What's the word? Apprentice?
Apprentice, I think they
But
use.
the mask, he wouldn't mind. Like, he wouldn't even question the
Paralegal.
mask.
I mean, given how, like, sort of theatrical he acts sometimes, maybe this is actually a good read.
Yeah.
Well, it worked. It looked cool in the court.
Yeah, it did work. And wait, wasn't there something ridiculous though too, where like when he gets caught by integration, he's brought to Scotland Yard, and Maelstrom happened to be there and noticed he just knew a bunch about the law, and was like, "You could make a good process." Isn't that the story he goes with?
Yeah, I mean, this one is pretty obvious. He is definitely lying about this.
Oh yeah, it's wild because he's just like this kid's just sitting on like a chair at Scotland Yard. It's like I don't think you have jurisprudence there, and it's like just backseating all the cops. And Maelstrom's like, wait a minute, you've got potential, my boy. Maybe that's why all those Twitch chat streamers or stream chat people are hoping for. It's like,
oh yeah, they hope that like somebody's watching. It's like, wait a minute, this kid's got talent.
You do know your Dark Souls. Get on up here. You know, like,
Wait a minute, finally somebody that knows how to play Tetris.
But so yeah,
and so basically, like after we talk about the two, like we screwed up your forensic stuff, and after he gives us the lies about Kazuma, the one other big reveal is that he's talking about Kazuma's father. He's the one who was the professor and who killed those people. He mentions that he has supporters to his cause because he was killing, I guess, elites who were just, parasites on society,
Yeah, it seems to be kind of a bourgeois thing.
Yeah, and not just so much that, like, sort of like capitalism bad kind of thing, but like in a way that like these people were, like there was something else wrong with them. Like, they were leeching off society, probably in a more specific move than just being, beneficial.
So like Saw.
Yeah, like there's like it sort of is implied that there were more crimes than just extracting labor from the masses.
Yeah, and they even point out that that's similar to what the Reaper is doing, except the Reaper is doing it with actual criminals who get into court, and the professor seemed to have been doing it to people who were even more untouchable than that. But then he killed Van Zick's brother, which everyone says was a pretty good man, so who knows?
Yep. And then I think that's all we get from him, right? And then we can move on from there. And I think the next thing, I went to Sholmes' suite, right? Because
I think that's the only other place we can go to right now.
Yeah.
So the first thing we see or we encounter when we get there is another person crying in umlauts.
Yeah, screaming apparently.
Yeah. And we see two redheaded guys, one short, one tall. One is speaking with like a French accent, and the other one is speaking in some nondescript accent.
I think it's supposed to be Italian.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, maybe so. Like he keeps saying, I don't like it. And they're talking to Gina, who wants to take them down to the police station.
Yeah, Gina is apparently just arresting them right now in Sholmes' living room.
Which is kind of great.
Yeah, and so there's a newspaper on the couch, which is like
Sholmes also appears here. And
Sholmes appears.
In his house.
This is awesome.
Bright red hair.
It's great, yeah.
I think it looks great. I think it's a good look for him.
It is. I mean, this is anime Sherlock Holmes. It's, Sholmes here is, looks good with red hair. He's going to look even better with other kind of hair soon. But, like, it fits because, if you're going to do steampunk anime Holmes, why not have different color hair?
But why does he have red hair, you might ask?
I didn't.
Well, that is answered by the newspaper that we can look at with a particular advertisement circled, which is, I think it was the Red Hair League? Yeah, the Redheaded League.
The Redheaded League.
Yeah, and that's directly from a Holmes story,
which we've referenced several times,
including I believe the advertisement is also exactly the same as what appeared in the Holmes story.
It is.
Right. But what is the Redheaded League? It's just this organization that you can join and get a salary for doing nothing, and all you have to do is have red hair.
Mm-hmm.
So does anyone want to remind what the actual Holmes story is about and how it ends?
I'm pretty sure that the actual Holmes story is sort of entwined with the pawnbroker case from earlier, like the Sherlock Holmes version of that case.
Yeah, well, didn't you say that it was like they were, like they put out an advertisement where you didn't have to do anything, but it was just, you explained this.
You had to copy the dictionary, I believe. That was what they told them to do.
The Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah.
You literally just had to copy the encyclopedia. And it turns out the only reason for all this incredible, the subterfuge is that they just needed the pawnbroker to get out of his shop for the afternoon because he was next to the bank. So they tunneled underneath.
Right.
Which was Sherlock Holmes's deduction the first time in the pawnbroker, and then we weaved him back to the case that we were actually doing, but he was just one step ahead.
Right. Oh, Holmes.
Yeah. So the reason that Sholmes has red hair here is because he changed it with science to where every hair on his body is red now.
He made a potion like he drank. It wasn't even like a dye.
Yeah, he didn't dye it. It was a magic, well, not a magic, a science potion.
Which, for the record, I have wanted for like decades. Just drink it, hair comes out the right color.
A science potion that can come out, yeah.
Yeah.
A chemical?
But did anyone else read like the other stories in the paper?
I did not.
No.
So I thought they were pretty interesting. I really liked the one that was talking about like the smallpox vaccine and how they were eliminating smallpox, because this is before germ theory. Like we don't know what germs are, but we do know that you can inject parts of a thing to make people immune to the disease, and I think that's fascinating.
If only we could relearn that nowadays, here in 2021. Anyway.
What? Yeah. To be back in that time period where you didn't know what a germ was, but if somebody told you, just put this stuff in you and you'll be okay, and that sounded like a normal good thing to do.
Yeah.
Did work.
I mean, it worked.
Did.
Can't fault him.
Well, the reason Sholmes wanted to go to the Redheaded League wasn't because he suspected anything wrong was going on, but because he wanted the job so he could get money.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the biggest plague, that the biggest problem that plagues mankind,
If he's paying
which
rent.
is paying
yes.
rent.
Right.
I love that so much.
But of course, his plan failed because, of course it did. He waits in line, gets over to, I guess they have these panelists that inspect you to see if you actually have red hair.
He waited like hours in line.
Yeah. And they say, hey, aren't you Herlock Sholmes?
You must be undercover.
Yeah. Because you're certainly not here to join the league because you don't have red hair, so that must be the case. And he says, yep, that's the case.
I think too, like, it's not even right that, like, it's not necessarily just you get red hair and you're in, right? Like, you have to, like, they have, like, an interview process, right?
I'm not sure if they have the interview process, but the one stipulation is that there are a limited amount of members that can be in the league.
That's right.
Like, the whole thing reeks of some sort of social experiment.
Or a scam.
Yeah.
Or a scam, right.
Yeah. The interviewing process is from the original story because there's, it's posted in the paper. It's, a lot of guys show up. Only the guy who they needed out of his pawn shop is the one who was chosen.
Let's see here. So basically, you have this little funny moment about with this all going on, but when we decide to ask him the deadly serious question of like, hey, Kazuma aboard the SS Buria, you said he was dead, and he wasn't. What the hell gives, So I think he says something funny like, great detectives tend to lie.
Yeah, that's what he said last time. And
last time, sorry.
Now we're taking him to task and being like, okay, you need to give us something here.
Yeah, so what's the truth? But
he did say that he had been unconscious and he wanted sorry, I don't have very good notes for this part.
He didn't know he would end up in Hong Kong or anything like that. Like that part of it, he was just like, I didn't know.
Or that he would disappear. I mean, he talks about like he had to bribe the whole crew into sort of going along with it.
Yeah, didn't he say that like he wanted his body to just be dropped at Hong Kong as a murdered corpse?
I just wanted to traumatize the ballerina. It's just a weird thing of mine. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I just wanted to let somebody think that they accidentally murdered or killed a person.
Mm-hmm. It was on my life's bucket list.
Just for laughs, because I wanted to see what would happen.
That and be a redhead, all over with chemicals. Okay.
But he didn't foresee that Kazuma would disappear from Hong Kong and appear in London.
Yeah, he didn't expect him to disappear. I don't know what he was expecting because he won't tell us.
It almost sounds like he had a reason that he didn't want Kazuma to end up in London. So when he got the opportunity to get him off the boat, he took it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go into a little bit about like how he did it by like bribing the crew and sneaking him out. But when we ask him why, he just says, I can't tell you right now, but later.
It's like the big like thing everybody friggin' says in this game, And I guess in a lot of like anime kind of media, like that, like, hey, time's not right, but someday maybe I will, which is like...
I mean, to be fair, they do want us to keep playing.
I mean, I guess, but there's a point where, I don't know.
If this was a free-to-play game, that's where we'd put a microtransaction in.
Oh yeah, pay 50 crowns to unlock the answer to this question.
Yeah. It's a shame they can't have microtransactions without some sort of weird, like, federated blockchain thing. Oh well, maybe someday. Well, after all that, I think, but like after that, then we get a new person in the lounge, right?
Not quite new.
Oh yeah, good point. I'm sorry. You're right.
Well, she's new to the lounge.
Yeah.
And we do just learn her name.
We got a juror. I forgot about that.
Yeah, she was just a number before. Now she has a name.
Yeah, her name is Mrs. Vigil.
Evie Vigil.
Yeah, I think she was juror number either 2 or 3.
2, I believe.
Yeah, she was the one who liked the drama and the romance of everything.
The intrigue, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's coming to Sherlock Holmes's office with a classic case, my husband's missing. My husband's gone missing.
And it's funny, because right before that, Sholmes is like, look, we're really low on rent. We have to accept any case, except, like, locating a runaway. And then the woman comes in, she's like, my husband has run away. And he's like, dang it. And but, like, I don't know why he calls that out as something he wouldn't want. Is it something that he wouldn't want to take payment for, or...
I have a feeling it's like, this is so below me.
He's just tired of missing people cases. He doesn't want to do them.
But he notices pretty quick that she's very well dressed and probably has a bunch of money. Yeah. He's like, okay, I got you.
And she is coming at him with like this, oh, please find my husband. I'll pay any price. And he says, your satisfaction is all I need, but I will remember that you said that.
Sholmes will remember that.
Yeah, so her husband is Daily Vigil, which I'm just going to admit I didn't get the pun until then, Daily D-A-L-Y. And he's a prison warder, which I guess is like a prison guard kind of person. And
so the Japanese band, by the way. So she keeps calling her husband Avery, but his full name is Everyday, which is every day.
I see.
And then the Mittelmons, Everyday Mittelmon, which in Japanese is Miterumon, so watching you every day, which is exactly like Daily Vigil. So it's good.
I see.
It's a good translation.
Oh, I see. Yeah, gotcha.
That's even better for a prison warden.
Yeah. So, yeah, good point. That part of the pun I actually still didn't get till right now. Anyway, so let's see. Chief warder. Oh yeah. He's actually a chief warder, and he carries out executions. Which yikes. And then he works at Barclay Prison, right next to Lowgate Cemetery. So a lot of these names are coming back.
Mm-hmm. And he makes a lot of money doing this.
Mm-hmm. But he's only been missing a day. But this is unusual because he's never misses a day. He's always home on time.
She says that he often has to stay over at work during the night, but he always tells her before, and he always. I guess he doesn't call her because they don't. Did they have telephones in homes at that point? For rich people.
I think we've telephoned like the police or something. Like there are like.
Police boxes, right? Because
this is set in the early 1900s, so yeah, they would have existed.
There are definitely telephones. It's late enough for telephones, but did they have them in private homes? That's what I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably not.
But they have police boxes in case 3 because that's what the Bobby sends his wife, I think, to go get.
I have a feeling that if you're rich, you would have one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the technology exists, so
yeah, it's around the right time, so it's possible.
Yeah.
And it's also important to note that her description here is another Sherlock Holmes case, the man with the twisted lip. It's going to come up again in a little bit too, but it's very much like this whole thing of like, oh, he's got this job and he earns a lot of money at it, even though other people don't make as much money. And he, I don't see him sometimes, but he always gets in contact about where he's going to be. This is all the setup for the man with the twisted lip.
And the police won't take her case because it's only been missing for one day. That's not enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But she's sure something happened because that never, in the 10 years that she's been married to him, that never happened. Or more than 10 years.
But let's see here. So he takes the case. We get a photograph of Mr. Vigil, of Daily Vigil.
The description says, like, this is the most generic man. Like, he has no distinguishing features.
I'm a big fan of how, like, after he takes the case, Holmes is then like, listen, why don't you go do this case for me, actually? I think you're ready for it. Which is pretty great.
And the good thing is when Naruto's like, what? What do you mean? He's like, no, but my hair, I can't go out in public like this.
He's like, you were out in public for hours on that line.
Yes, but this is different. Another matter entirely, which I'm not going to explain.
This game owns. So we have to. So from there, we get like places to go, such as the prison governor's office.
Yeah, that's why we have to go there first. We don't get much though.
And I love the shit out of this place and this guy.
He's a really good racist. I got to give it to him.
Well, first of all, let's go over his name, which his full name is Barricadon, which is appropriate because when you speak to him, he does refuse to talk to you because you are Japanese. But also, his title is the governor of the prison, and he's also very muscular. He's got like the whole cleft chin thing, and that matches with the Bara portion of his name, which is like a subset of like Japanese kind of art. And barricading, of course, is, he's putting up walls against you, so barricading.
His Japanese name is much more straightforward. It's Harry Barricade. His name is Harry, and his last name is Barricade.
Because he puts up hairy walls. It's really weird, but
yeah, like in the game, we frequently use the like that guy in black clothing to like kind of disguise what were more racially charged in the original, I believe.
Yeah, every instance where someone talks about Naruhodo's like black suit, I think in the original they're talking about his yellow skin is what they mention.
Oof.
What do you mean in the original?
That's at least what I read. Yeah, in the original.
Just in the Japanese.
No, they talk about his black suit a lot in the.
Oh, okay.
They do not. I do know that for these new versions of the game, this was originally a 3DS game. They did tone it a little down in the Japanese version, because there were several instances where people compared the Japanese people to monkeys in the original, and they took that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is all intentional and there for a purpose. So but that was apparently too much.
Oh yeah, no, which would it's just appropriate racism for the time is a little off-putting in a DS game.
Right. Yeah. Well.
It also, it makes sense to have like sort of racism in a piece of media like for that group, and it's like okay, this is something that it feels a little worse to just kind of consume it mindlessly, not being in that group. Just being like, it's just let me just kind of have some nice Japanese racism in my entertainment. I probably is a little more uncomfortable. Or more inappropriate, at least.
Yeah, I don't mean it so much to say it's inappropriate, but it just seems tonally inconsistent with a game that's pretty lighthearted to get all that serious. And probably given more perspective and time, they're like, you know what, we don't want to make this too much of a joke.
It's a whole thing, too, for like an international audience, because some people don't have like the background and stuff that, you know what I mean, like Westerners would in this. So it's just, it's tricky, It's a tough sea to navigate, as it were.
I think the big difference here is just like we've had kind of, I don't want to say lighthearted, but it's been generally light smatterings of just like a racist overtone. But then you go from that to like an out and out slur is just a little bit too much.
I think my main problem with the game is not that there's racism in it because it's trying to say something, but it's that at least for the main characters, the racism ends up being like because they were wronged by a Japanese in the past, and that's why they hate all Japanese.
Yeah, like it's okay racism for them.
That's both Van Zix and this person over here, barricading. Who is also he refused to talk to us because of the professor, because there was a professor incident 10 years ago, and that's why he doesn't trust Japanese people. And then we find out that he's actually a very good friend with a Japanese person, another one.
And apparently that doesn't cancel out.
Well, I think for him especially, and we get kind of overtones of this, is that he was involved intimately in the whole professor deal with him being in his prison and being executed. And when we ask about Daily Vigil, he
refuses to talk to us right now, so we have to...
Well, he refuses to talk to us at first.
He won't even let us examine the room, which is terrible because there is an amazing grandfather clock in the background.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm asking about is this physically possible? So let me describe this. You know how most grandfather clocks, they have a pendulum, it goes back and forth. This one has a guillotine and it goes up and down. So I don't know if that's physically possible, but it's cool as hell.
I'm sure with the right combination of gears.
He said that he uses it to cut vegetables. So it's a working guillotine.
It looks sharp.
Yeah, it's even got the little hole at the bottom.
He's also he's Scottish, which I don't know if that's present in the original one, but like there's a lot of like different, like he uses Ken for no, a few other things, where it's pretty clearly Scottish.
Yeah, it isn't. I think they just wanted the name Caden. They want the name Caden, so they had to make him Scottish. I think that's.
I was wondering. I'm like, yeah. It felt like that was some kind of translation thing.
The accent was very difficult for me to parse here. I just knew it was some sort of something.
So I imagined him as Scrooge McDuck, as I do with all Scottish people whose voices I can't hear. He also the detective in Dolores Claiborne, but who's also inexplicably Scottish, but whatever. Not because of that's just because Stephen King was being weird. Anyway, so
we remember that Susato's dad mentioned him when we talked to them in the beginning of the chapter. So we go to him, and yeah, he's friends with the guy, so he gives us a letter of recommendation, introduction.
Yeah.
Which is written on the back of their boat ticket, I think.
Right,
yes, and if you look at it, then it changes the description, so it's going to come up at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're like, oh, what? Like, it's so weird that he just handed this to us. Like, I kept mine as a souvenir, as a memento. And, yeah, I don't know how that could come up, but clearly it will.
So we bring the letter of introduction back to Harry Barricade, which I kind of like that name better.
It's funny, though, because he's not a very good racist, because it's like, I don't like Japanese people, but oh, wait, okay, this is an important Japanese guy. All right, so now I trust you, which is like, all right. And to be fair, like, also, at one point, he's very nice to Susato, like, after this, so he's like,
because he's friends with her dad, so yeah, you're the daughter of the guy I like.
I mean, the specific reason that he says he doesn't want to talk to them, and this is a reason that other people have brought up, is because, not just because they were Japanese, but they were involved with some other, like, terrible, traumatic Japanese case. In his case being the whole professor thing. And the idea is that, well, they're both Japanese, they might be, you might be trying to do something.
Still kind of racist. I'm putting it out there. Like, yeah, no, or it still is. Yeah, it's not like, Yeah.
No, I just can't get over the fact that, like Von Zieks has been very explicitly racist, but is still, like, working with us, and this guy is just like, nope. If you're Japanese, I do not want to talk to you. It just hard stonewalls us, which is just a little,
almost like a barricade.
Like a racist barricade.
But once we bring back the letter of introduction, he's like, "Oh, you're Eugen's friends. That's totally fine. He's great. We're great. You're his kid. That's wonderful. I'll answer any questions you have. Everything's fine now. Racism solved."
Like he doesn't say one of the good ones, but it's kind of implied.
Yeah. No.
So what do we learn about Daily Vigil? We ask him about, do you have any missing persons? Granted, he was only missing a day, but do you have any? And he says, well, no, there's no missing persons. And we ask specifically about Daily Vigil, who was one of the guards there.
I mean, I don't know where he is, but maybe missing is not quite, I fired him like 10 years ago. He hasn't worked here in a decade, which is like, oh, and you get to that whole like, oh, he got fired and he was too embarrassed to tell his wife that he got fired kind of thing, But
like, the money is still coming from somewhere.
The money is coming in and he's staying nights away from home fairly frequently. So he's doing something.
Yes.
No, can you imagine, like, I'm too embarrassed that I lost my job executing criminals for a lot of money? Like, you know, I'm not saying it's, like a moral, just, like, it's weird. Just, like, yeah, you know, I can't tell my wife that I lost my job killing people for the state. I don't know.
Well, you bring up a good point. It's like, how do you fuck that up? Because apparently this is something that doesn't happen very often. And he did something that was bad.
Let me tell you about a little movie called The Green Mile, and the multiple ways you can fuck up being an No, I'm joking, but it's so he's apparently been fired, and the guy even gives us his like dismissal notice, you know,
a harshly worded reprimand.
And it says that it was the professor's execution that he botched, so that is why he was fired. So it's all very explicitly intertwined.
We do know that the professor wasn't actually executed. So.
Was pretty botched, have to admit that.
Wait a minute. I haven't gotten to the end of this, obviously, but I'm just thinking, you know that rumor that goes around where it's like, you know, if they execute you and they botch it, then you have to go free. Like, I wonder if that is what happened. Like, they botched his execution and it's like some rule where it was like he was going to have to go free.
Mm-hmm. Just for the record, for folks at home, that's totally like a myth.
I mean, it is a myth, but, you know, it'd make for great rating.
I think it was the plot of a horror movie, I think, called like Shocker, where the tagline was "No more Mr. Nice Guy," and he gets like the electric chair twice, and I think he lives, but then, you know, he lives on through electricity. Hold on, I have to look this up now. Not that part, the part about. On a second. If you survive...
I thought you were going to say where it's like they had to let him go, but you're kind of leaning towards he becomes an electricity ghost monster.
Right. Let's see. Yeah, it's totally wrong. Yeah. You don't get to... They don't give you...
There's no double jeopardy for death. Yeah, no.
Yeah. There's no hall pass. There's no mulligan on that one, you know. What do you call it?
Yeah, but so...
Anyway.
They spell out exactly why he got fired and that he doesn't have this job. Like I referenced before, it's the same plot from the Holmes story, The Man with the Twisted Lip. Again, it's a guy who get fired and is somehow still earning a bunch of money, which we don't know how. But once we sort of get that dismissal notice into our court record, which is, you know, probably going to come up later, we can go back to Holmes' suite where we find that Holmes has been he has solved his red hair. By dyeing it blue. Or not even dyeing it, by taking another thing that caused himself to go.
Taking another science potion.
Yeah, another hair restoration tonic. And it's a lovely sky blue. I think it also looks very good.
Yeah, and so Holmes is looking purely anime Sholmes now, and Gina shows up, who is still just, you know, absolutely heartbroken because of Gregson.
Well, yeah, she says it's because of Gregson, and so I'm like, oh man, he finally told her that he's moving to Paris, and she doesn't want to leave. Mm-hmm. It turns out that is not why she's upset. It turns out that Gregson has been murdered.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was not seeing that one coming. I think it's worth mentioning.
And it's too late in the game for him to be, you know, dumped off in Hong Kong and come back later. He's fucking dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. All through this like whole like update, I was like kind of waiting for like a shoe to drop or something to be like, you know, no, he's not dead, you know. But
I actually like the emotional dissonance in this scene, which begins with the blue-haired Sholmes and like very high comedy, and then immediately goes into crying Gina and being very serious.
Yeah, when she came in and started crying, like, I thought from, like, the overall tone of the thing, I thought she was going to say something like, well, Toby ran away. It's like, oh, we got to go find Toby. No, Gregson's dead. Just fucking dead.
And we got to go find Toby.
I think they very purposefully, like, don't really show Sholmes for a little bit of the rest of the scene. I think because of the tone. They don't want to, now that they've punched us in the face, they don't really want to make more jokes. At least for a little bit.
It also, like, when the scene does end, Sholmes just goes to the crime scene to investigate immediately. So I think that was to show that before he didn't even want to go out with the red hair because it was some investigation he didn't care about. But now that's the last thing he could care about, just want to investigate.
Right, exactly.
Someone close to him.
And the big thing that Gina tells us is not only that Gregson was dead, that he was shot in this like empty room, but the person who was arrested was Von Zieks. He was the only other person there. That apparently there were multiple witnesses who heard the gunshot. They head straight to the room. The cops show up. Everyone finds the only person there is Von Zieks and Gregson dead.
Yeah, they're really recreating Ace Attorney 1. This game.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I've been jokingly referring to the Professor case as DL6 the entire time because it's just it's the case everyone calls back to. It's always a mystery, and so here we are, just casually repeating Ace Attorney 4, Ace Attorney 1, Case 4.
Mm-hmm.
We do go to the prison after that, right?
Yeah, we can either go to prison or the crime scene. I went to the prison.
Yeah. Also, yeah, I guess it is worth mentioning too, like multiple people heard the gunshot also.
Yeah, I mean, what lends credence to the whole thing, because we do go through that whole, well, are you sure, Gina? That's Von Zieks. I don't think he'd do that. And she's like, no, there were multiple witnesses to it.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, we go there and Von Zieks like, I don't want to talk to you. You know, it's just like, you're the last person I want to talk to, you know?
And he kind of anticipates what's going to happen because he's like, he basically is like, I'll talk to you. I'll tell you what happened. But I can kind of see your angle into being my defensive attorney here, and that's not going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah, we're like, who do you want to be your defense attorney? And he's like, anyone but you.
Right.
He's like, I already know that most of the attorneys in this town will not take me as a client. I definitely don't want you, though.
Which, like, to be fair, we have a pretty goddamn good track record, so,
Yeah.
I think we haven't lost a case, technically. We're Perry Mason. Except everyone hates us because we're Japanese. But anyway.
He's reading a letter when we walk in, and he tells us, like, oh, it's from Hairbrain. He says that he got here safe, or he got back to Germany safe, and everything's fine. So we've got that much good news, at least.
And he's like, how are you? And I didn't tell him yet. So,
He doesn't tell us much. He doesn't really know what happened.
Yeah, he's just emphatic about the fact that, like, listen, I didn't know what happened, and you're not going to be my attorney, so could we just end this now?
Yeah. I heard the gunshot, I think, but I didn't shoot anybody, that kind of thing. Let's see. Yeah. So then we can continue investigating his case. So we go to the room, and the room is, in fact, an empty room. There's a notice board, like a bulletin board, like a rolling bulletin board kind of thing, with just tons of newspaper articles on it. There is, of course, on the like a little fireplace kind of thing, and a little table with a picture on it, and on the other side, of course, it's Gregson's body curled up in like the fetal position.
Well, there's no body, but there's a chalk
rope
outline.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right.
A rope outline.
The
you're
rope
right.
outline, and it's in that like curled up position. You're right.
Which is almost more effective because it made me, because there's a rope outline with a blood stain, and as soon as I saw it, it was like, oh, he crumpled up because he got shot like right in like point blank range. And it made it feel like, oh, they didn't fake this. This is where that guy died, and this is where he died, because like they made it very stark in sort of the way they're depicting it.
You mentioned the table with a photo on it. The photo is of Mrs. Vigil.
Yeah, it's like a younger photo of her.
Mm-hmm. There is a gun on the floor. There is a red wig near the rope. The gun is a revolver, and I think they mention it's like a stand. It's like. And they kind of make it like broad, like it's given to like not just police, but I forget how they phrase it.
Members of the judiciary?
Strongheart talks about it when we ask. Yeah, Strongheart talks about it when we ask him later. Yeah, it's like the standard guns they give everyone. So they don't know that it's actually Von Zieks, but he has a gun like that, which is missing.
Right. And when pressed about, where is the gun? Well, Van Zieks says he lost it.
Which is like, what a jerk.
Okay.
I had a gun, but I lost it. I'd lose my head if it weren't attached, right, everybody? It's like, I'd use a fucking gun, but yeah, right.
Well, when we ask him about it, and I guess we ask him about it a little bit later, but like he says he lost it like 10 years ago, like as soon as they gave it to him. It's like, well,
yeah,
Yeah.
I was immediately like, they stole it. You know what I mean? To like frame him for this. And then it's like, nah, I lost it like 10 years ago. It's like, oh, all right, then.
Well, no, every case in this game, everyone sits on it for 10 years. It's like a fine wine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's also a little toy policeman on the floor.
Oh, yeah, that thing,
That
right.
Susanna really likes for some reason. Like, she keeps mentioning, like, oh, it's so cute. Look at this little toy that we found here. Isn't that cute? I'm like, yes, this is an awfully cute toy.
It's not the time, Susato.
The fact that they go out of their way to point out how cute and adorable the toy is just makes me think it's the murder weapon.
Well, if we
Wow.
examine it and twist its head, we find out that it's a key to something.
Right.
And there's a candle holder on the wall with 2 candles like burned, completely burned off, and one that's not.
Right.
Yeah, one that looks like a little bit blown up. Like there's even like there's some like black residue around it,
Right.
and it's tall, so it didn't take long, or didn't get to burn for very long.
So, Jean is also here. We can talk to her, right? And she tells us a bit about.
She like takes command of the situation. She like screaming at the
Yeah.
other officers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she's telling them that they're not investigating properly because as a diver, she like knows where to look for money. So she's telling them to look everywhere.
Yeah, it's like check inside the fireplace, on the underside of any like cabinets or dressers. She really knows how to case a joint. And
for
apparently
sure.
these police officers don't. Ugh.
Yep.
Yeah, so, and the really solid information she gives us. Well, first off is the fact that, like, Gregson is very well respected in Scotland Yard, that he's a legend for a case he solved 10 years ago. And it's kind of super implied that actually I think they say it at one point eventually that he found the evidence for the professor being convicted. And that she mentions that he also, he respected the Reaper, because she brings up that he would talk about the Reaper, very respectful tone. So like it's odd that this would have been his killer. And she brings up the fact that the room they're in, it was rented by a person named Hugh Boone, which I think like Susato immediately points out, like, that sounds like a fake name. And because they can't find out who this person is. None of the other rooms there are rented by anyone because they're very expensive.
Isn't Hugh Boone also from the show of the Holmes story?
Yeah.
The same one?
This is all from The Man with the Twisted Lip. There's like constant references to all these. And so after that, like, she tells us that the witnesses that she had referenced earlier were street sellers who were just right outside the door, right outside the window. There's a boarded up window that you see in the room, and right outside, they're all right there. So that these were the people who sort of rushed over, and these were the witnesses to the crime. You can't speak to them yet. She's like, they're all down at Scotland Yard, and no, like, they're gonna let you look at the scene because I'm here, but they're not gonna let you go interrogate witnesses at the yard. So that's kind of all you can do at the scene.
The other thing is the the cork board that has all the like case notes on it. They specifically note that it looks like it's mostly documents that only a detective could have gathered, and it's mostly about like the Reaper. It's mostly about people that the Reaper has killed. But there's also that same cutout for the Redheaded League. So there's the implication that somehow those two things are connected, which is very confusing. But I mean, if he's such a great detective, he can't just be completely misled. But I think this is also where we talk about how, like, Gregson was such a well-respected detective that he would just kind of go off and disappear for maybe like a couple days and investigate things. And so it's sort of assumed that he did this here for some reason. This is just his investigation nook.
I think they say that, like, he never worked with anybody. He always worked alone and told no one exactly what he was investigating.
But he'd come back and solve major cases, so they let him do it.
They let him do it.
It's a little weird, but it could work. Let's see here.
I think that's what we get from the crime scene. So next we go to Strongheart's office again.
Yeah, we need to find someone who knows about guns, so we immediately go to Strongheart.
Right. And who's he talking to?
It's Kazuma.
It's Kazuma. It's Kazuma, you know? And guess what? Kazuma is apparently going to be prosecuting Van Zeeks.
I win. 1 point for Rosella.
So I kind of had this spoiled for me because in the trailer for this on Twitter, they show like Van Zeeks, and they show like it's quick, but they show somebody in the prosecutor's side of the court clearly with a sword, you know. So I was like, you know, I'm like, who the hell could that possibly be? But as like we were doing this, I'm like, it could only be Kazuma somehow, you know what I mean, or someone else. But then when he was like the assistant and all that, it's like, all right, he's gonna be the prosecutor at some point, you know.
This is why I never watch trailers for games I already know I want to play.
Well, that was very wise of you, but that's a lesson I unfortunately had to relearn the hard way. But anywho,
they do try to justify it because they say that if they're going to get someone from the prosecutor's office to prosecute one of the main prosecutors, it's going to look like there's something unjust going on, so they have to get an outsider.
Right. So why not give the guy who hasn't had a day in court?
I'm not sure how you get like a foreign person.
Well,
who is actually a student.
Yeah, and just recovered from amnesia, and you know, like
also who trained as a defense attorney. Like we bring up, it's like, but he isn't even a prosecutor. It's like, well, when you're young and in this business and still trying to establish yourself, you can't pick and choose what cases you're on. It's like, you generally do get to pick what job you do.
Yeah.
Right. This is an important one also. You know what I mean? Like, you're a big prosecutor, who, by the way, everyone in London thinks is actually a murderer, kind of, you know?
Yeah. And also, if you really wanted to find someone who isn't, you know, sort of enmeshed in the British judiciary, every single important person from around the area is here at this exact same moment. Like, you could literally just go down to the symposium and get like any, you know, like attorney or, you know, prosecutor from abroad who is here for these big things. Like, there are a whole bunch of other people who could do this job.
Don't they also kind of imply that this is like sort of going to be like he's on trial sort of for this murder, but also sort of for being the Reaper?
Yeah.
Which, like,
right.
Last case, you explicitly and suspiciously specifically said, I know for a fact that he is not the one committing all these murders. But now it's like, well, he's on trial for committing all these murders, you know?
Yeah, at the start of the game, Maelstrom is like, well, I know personally he couldn't do it. But now he's acting like, well, we're going to put him on trial because maybe he did. I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, we have to move this game along somehow, and these are going to be the circumstances here.
Yeah, this is what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Look at the first witness, Ludo narrative. So weird. Anyway, sorry. That's right.
We can also talk to Kazuma while we're here, and he explains how he got from Hong Kong to London, which was apparently just a voice in his head saying, "You got to go to London, man."
Yeah, seriously.
Like that's where your destiny is. You have to go to London. And that was, I mean, I guess if you have amnesia, that's as good an answer as any.
If you woke up in a completely like foreign country, you know what I mean, with no memory how you got there, and it's like, gotta hit up New Jersey. I mean, you know, like what's your other choice there? You know, if you have no recollection.
My problem with Kazuma here is that, so like we gave him back his sword, right? The Karama?
Mm-hmm.
And that's reasonable. But he still kept his old sword. So now he's standing here with 2 swords, and we have 0.
I know, right?
And I just...
Give us a sword!
Like, I thought we were friends, man.
Yeah, save some swords for the rest of us.
Well, you know what's frustrating, too, is that he's, like, also, like, he's gonna be, you know, dueling us, like, metaphorically in court. So it's appropriate. At least give us the Western sword. I can understand that's my family sword you've been using.
Right,
like,
totally.
I'll need to have it back. So, you know, have this one. Proper sword, but no.
You know, I'm going to say that he doesn't do that because it'll be revealed at the end of the trial that the other sword is named Naruhodo and he refuses to let it leave his side.
Aww.
That would be weird to name a Western sword that, but yeah, you're right. It's named Of Course, and it's like a weird little joke, but anyway.
He also gives us a photo of Von Zeke's, Gregson, and what looks to be Von Zeke's brother, all like, palling around and laughing. And this is our evidentiary support of the idea that Gregson really liked Von Zeke's because he kept it. I
think, isn't it too like, and what's his Cosmo's like, I want to fight you in court, so use this to emotionally like blackmail Von Zeke's into hiring you, okay?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly it. Because he's like he really wants both of them to do it. And it's like, no, Gregson kept this in like a place of honor in his office. So just tell Von Zeke's that, and then he'll have to hire you.
Right. So then we go back to prison and it works. Like, yeah, all right.
Although he definitely seems shook when we tell him that Kazuma Asogi is going to be the prosecutor in this, and
it's the son of the man who killed his brother. So
yeah, exactly. They clearly he did not know who this person was that Maelstrom was forcing him to use as his assistant. After he's shook and he explains all this stuff about like why he hates why he has this legitimate reason for racism that once the picture is shown to him that he's like, okay, you know what, I've only seen two people with this and then he also exposes the gun stuff too, but the big key is that he's only seen two people in the courtroom with this sort of this pursuit of the truth. One of them, of course, is Genshin and Asogi, who he was betrayed by, and the other is Ryunosuke, who he has this natural inclination not to trust, but in this case, because we've shown him the photograph, will trust and wants to be the defense attorney.
Is this where we also learned that Asogi was studying at the Scotland Yard and was actually helping Gregson with the investigation into the professor?
Yeah, I think so.
And that's why they didn't catch him, because he was actually on the investigation team.
Yeah.
Which at this point, I feel like we're really dropping hints that Asogi was not actually the professor, and he didn't actually murder all those people, because it seems like everyone really, really liked him. And also, I think it's kind of a bummer if our best friend has a dad who's a murderer.
Everyone really liked him. Some people tried to not actually execute him. So yeah.
Yeah.
So have we established at this point, like, also how the professor was killing people? We have, right?
Yeah, with a dog.
With a dog.
Yeah. So also, like, the whole story is like this guy emigrates to London, gets a dog, trains it to be a killer, and it's like a serial kill. You know what I mean? Like, that's a tight time frame, even for a year.
Well, I think he had 6 years to do it, all right?
It's 6 years.
He had 6 years.
Oh, 6 years.
It happened 6 years after they came to London.
All right, I guess.
Also, the dog was super talented.
Where are you keeping your big dog? I don't know.
No one ever came to your flat late at night to study the case and noticed you had a gigantic dog with blood on his muzzle? Like,
right, yeah.
Also, who are the Baskervilles? Because the dog's collar had a large B and the Baskervilles name.
Yeah. This definitely involves something of that sort.
We only ever heard that name in that context. We don't know anything else about who they are.
Also, they did say that that case was kind of similar to the first case in the first game, where it's like, yeah, it was a diplomatic incident. It was right when the Japanese and English governments were kind of working out a truce, so they didn't want to cause a scene, which is exactly why they tried to frame us in the first case of like, look, we just want to arrest someone because that will calm things over. So that the parallels there I just realized this, sorry. The parallels there kind of imply that, yeah, they did just need to arrest someone, and maybe that is why they botched the execution, because that felt a little too mean.
It feels like though, like in both cases, like the Japanese side is getting like the shorter end of the stick. Like they kind of want to impress the British, more than anything. Than like
that's not strange. I mean, the British is an empire, and Japanese is a small island that just came out of hundreds of years of being closed off to the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's a dominant economic power at the time, worldwide,
Right.
that you're trying to assuage in sort of these negotiations.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. So anyway, finally, like, Von Zieks allows us to defend him in court. So then that begins trial part 1. Let's see here. So apparently, it starts out in the antechamber outside, and it's like, this is going to be a closed trial, So, of course, there's no jury. And then Sholmes and Mikitoba show up and decide to give us some friendly advice and starting and undo all this stuff. Let's see here.
Sholmes' hair is back to normal.
Yeah, he solved the problem.
That's true, yeah, which is a shame.
Apparently, he really screwed up his stomach, though, giving himself constant potions to sort of have the same effect in reverse.
It's fine.
But he also talks to Von Zieks, and he's just like, "Oh, you're going to be represented by a great attorney because he's backed up by me, right over here, Mr. Sholmes."
That's right. Gina's here. She actually, I think, is well, surely. I think she's kind of I think she thinks maybe Van Zieks killed him, right? Is that how that goes?
Everyone's told her that, and she feels a little betrayed, certainly, by the fact that we're defending him. But when sort of, Ryunosuke sort of says, "Listen, I don't believe it. He did it. I'm just going to get to the bottom of the truth." She's like, "Well, you better get to the truth then, because we need to know who killed Gregson." And so she's not quite willing to let go of the fact that it's Von Zieks, because everyone seems to say it's so obvious. But she is also trusting that, okay, you're gonna solve this, because we need to.
That's right. So trial starts, and then what is it? Let's see. So
it's funny because they say it's a closed trial and that we're not gonna have a jury, we're not gonna have members of the public, but it's the same images. You still see the shadows of people in the gallery.
I think there are people, right?
Yeah, no, and then they bring it up. Ryunosuke asks, okay, then who are all of these dozens of people here? And it's it's members of the judiciary. So they're allowed to be here. Also, it means we can keep the art assets the same.
Right. I think also, to be totally fair, right? You don't want it closed where it's just the judge, the 2 lawyers, the only people who know what went on, that kind of thing, right? So some sort of semblance of justice. Even though whatever. It's not whatever. Anyway, so let's see. So Kazuma starts off as his prosecutorial duties, and he presents the autopsy report, right? Which is that let's see here. The autopsy report.
Yeah, it has a name on it once more.
Mm-hmm.
What is it in English?
It's Maria Gori.
Yeah,
I think so. Maria Gori. And let's see here.
Yeah, Kazuma says that the incident took place at 5 p.m. On the dot. That we had a bunch of witnesses that heard the gunshot and then ran in and saw the people, which we kind of already knew. He also says that Gregson was shot at point blank range, which we know because there's gunpowder residue, and that only happens within a couple inches.
Right.
Of when the gun goes off. And he does give us the autopsy report, which is conspicuously, in addition to conspicuously having a name on it, it is also conspicuously missing information. We bring it up later, but it's just...
Yeah, as soon as you look at it, you notice, it's very obvious. They're oh, what? And you have to wait for them to reveal that later on in the trial.
It just says guy died, the end. That's it. It's weird. I don't know. But anyway, so we get Von Zieks up to testify, and basically he's
yeah, this is just basically him telling his version of the story.
Right. He was investigating Gregson. He went to that address because that's where it led him. It was dark inside. He heard a gunshot, spun around, saw the gun, makes the mistake we did as a young pre-lawyer and picks it up to look at it. And then the door flows open. He hears a scream, and then he notices, oh, shit, Gregson's body. This looks bad for me.
Speaking of bookends.
Everyone at home, I beg of you, don't pick up the fucking gun. Okay, they really want to hammer that home in Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.
So if we press all of this, some other things we learn is that he was investigating Gregson, but he didn't follow him into the building. He actually broke into the Scotland Yard and searched Gregson's desk and found out where he was going to be.
Yeah, he had a diary, I think.
Yeah.
That said where he was going.
Yeah, they point out that that's also a crime that you did, and he said, "Yeah, I was prepared to be caught for that one." But
Yeah.
and he still says that he didn't see the body until the very end, until after he saw the gun.
Right. And it was like only lit by, it was in a well lit room. There was just like the one light, like an oil light, I think, right? He said.
Yeah, he said it was very dark. There was only the light from the desk.
So Kazuma then says this is all bullshit. I have a theory. You're an asshole. No, that actually
No, you.
that this was like this was actually like the place, the Reaper's headquarters, more or less, and that's why. And basically, all the documents that are on the notice board I mentioned like had to do with the Reaper case, and then we get the notice board in the court record, which if you examine it first thing, everybody else see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So kind of on the top, there's a handprint of blood, but it's pointing down, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
Like the fingers are pointing down, not pointing like fingers, but the fingers are facing down.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously Spider-Man was bleeding onto it.
Kazuma's theory is that the opposite happened, that this was Van Ziek's little hideout where he did his Reaper stuff from, and Gregson was investigating him and found it, and then walked on Van Ziek, and Van Ziek killed him.
Right.
I just feel like this is a really thin explanation, because if it were the Reaper's hideout and that's why he had all the cases, I feel like they'd be like checked off, right? It's like, oh, this guy, got acquitted. Nope, took care of him. Drowned in the Thames.
Maybe he just keeps forgetting to do that, and then once or twice he has to go to kill a guy, and he's like, oh no, I got him. Right. Stupid. Yeah.
It's like Memento, but serial killer. Yeah.
Yeah. Or frankly, like me, I would forget that kind of shit. Like I didn't mark him down. That was a long night, though. To be fair to me, I don't know who I'm telling that to in this scenario, but still,
Yeah.
Maybe all of you on the podcast. Anyway,
but it's really funny because it feels like he's making an objection. Like he points out a thing. It's like I couldn't see the body, and it feels like he is presenting evidence, saying, "Hey, the candelabra." Like one of them was blown off, but the other two burned down, which means that they were clearly lit at the time. So if the candelabra was lit, the candelabra was right by the body, you had to have seen the body, and that's when he does his whole thing. So it feels very much like something we would do, but he's doing it to us, which is rude.
So I think at this point it's kind of like, that's all we're getting out of this guy. Let's go to the witnesses, right?
Yeah.
And we get the witnesses Gossip, Venus, and Sandwich, their names are.
Mm-hmm.
Venus's pun is kind of fucked up if you ask me, but we'll get to her in a sec. Because Sandwich is a guy with a sandwich board who is very, very, very clearly the guy driving the carriage.
Yeah, it's Beppo.
It's Beppo.
What's his name again? I forgot, actually.
Beppo.
Beppo.
Okay, yeah.
Beppo the clown.
Beppo. And I think we make a reference to it, but nobody explicitly says it, right?
Oh, I love that it's Beppo.
He still seems so cold.
Yeah, poor Beppo. But Venus is selling firecrackers.
And there's Gossip. You forgot Gossip.
Well, I was getting to Gossip, but I just wanted to get into Venus de Milo, like she's gonna blow her fucking arms off one day with her firecrackers. Yikes is my answer to that.
I did not make that connection.
Yeah, but and Gossip, who's a guy with kind of a squinty. He's got that Dick Van Dyke chimney sweep beret, and he's squinty, and he's got a giant fucking lip.
He's a man with a twisted lip, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't know about this home story, so I was kind of home stories. I was kind of like, that's weird, but Ace Attorney, I guess. But yeah.
So two things about these witnesses. I have the art book for the game, and it has comments from the character designer.
So
the first thing is that Sandwich being Beppo, it was supposed to be an original character, but they had budget issues, so he suggested that they reuse an existing character. And Shotakumi went with it. And I think it's better for it. It's better than if it was a completely new character.
I mean, his boss was on the jury, so it makes sense that his job didn't go super well after that case.
It really does.
The second is that Venus, he designed her to be the evil twin of the main female character from the Professor Layton Ace Attorney game.
That was my first thought when I saw her, is it looks like...
Espella?
Yeah.
Look it up. Her name is Espella Cantabella. They look exactly the same, except she's like a little more evil in this game.
Right.
And she's also sexy, which is synonymous with evil. So...
Because it's the same character designer, so he just he reused the design. But yeah, gossip sells information.
Right.
That's his job.
And actually, what's kind of great here is when they're introducing that gossip shells information and Venus sells firecrackers, is every time they're like, "Oh, you sell that?" And Gossip's like, "I got a good one for you." And then they're like, and then Kazuma's like, Ryanowski, why don't you pay for it? And the judge is like, "Yeah, please give him some money." And like we're kind of ordered to give him money, and then there's like his Gossip's information is like, "I hear this couple like that you've never heard of is getting married," and it's like, and we're just kind of like, that was not helpful at all to us. And he's like, "Well, still." And then later, and then we have to buy a firecracker from Venus, and
we have to buy the big one. We have to pay a lot of money for the big firecracker that she sells for 10 times more.
Yep. And if you examine it, you set off just one. But if you also note that if you were to set off all of them, it sounds exactly like a gunshot.
Mm-hmm.
How we still have this in our inventory afterwards, I don't know, but you get the idea.
Sandwich isn't selling anything. No one knows exactly what he does, but he likes philosophy.
Yeah. He just muses. That's what he does.
I've assumed he was like a sandwich board kind of guy, right? Like there's this advertising stuff. Like
he seems to be doing that, but no one is actually sure that's where he's getting the money.
It's like the precursor to the sign spinner.
And it doesn't seem to be like an actual ad. It just seems to be like random words on his sign.
What gosh, I forget. He has something weird written on the back of his sign, doesn't he? That like we see later, but maybe we can get into that later, I guess. But anyway, they saw the whole thing, right? They heard the Reaper. They saw Van Zieks go inside, heard a big bang. They ran in and they see the Reaper standing over the dead body. And then Venus ran to get a copper. Anyway.
We also got a photo of the crime scene at this point. And there is a photographic print of Gregson lying there with the red hairpiece on.
Right.
Yeah, and so Gossip is basically saying, he bigs himself up. He's like, I was the first in the room. I kicked the door open to find out what happened. And, all this stuff, like it was lit up by candles. It wasn't dark the way, like, because Von Zieks' thing was that he couldn't see in the room and didn't see the body before it happened. And then Sandwich is just like, that's bullshit. Nah, none of that is true. You went in, you screamed like a woman, and then you just, you fell over immediately. And Gossip eventually is just like, you weren't supposed to tell him that, and just admits that, yeah, okay, I fell into a pool of blood.
Please don't tell the newspaper I screamed, yeah.
It says the floor was very slippery.
The floor was slippery, yeah.
Because of all the blood.
Right, yeah. So then he amends that testimony, and basically, this explains the notice board, kind of. So we can kind of say, like, obviously what had to happen was he slipped in the blood, and his bloody handprint hands on the back of the notice board. The only way that can really work is that the board had to have been moved from its position in the room, like where it was standing. It must have been lying down,
Yeah.
Also, it had to be blocking, it had to be between the door and the body. So that makes Von Zieks' story make more sense because he wouldn't have seen it because both the body and the light from the candelabra would have been blocked by the notice board. But when they ran in, they flung the door open so hard that they knocked it over.
Yeah,
that's right. So like they have to explain why did this notice board move or whatever. So Gossip's like, I don't know, and everyone's just like, I don't know about anything. And then they're like, and then Sandwich is like, I don't see how this changes anything. The detective died when we heard the gunshot, So what do you call it? this is one of those, you pursue Sandwich a lot for this bullshit stuff, and she was like, I hung out behind till I heard whatever. And then he's like, no. She went with him, and basically you can get Venus to admit that she moved the notice board and took something, his pocket watch, that Gina is like really upset with. So we get the pocket watch, right?
Yeah, Venus is revealed like as a big liar here. That everything she says is a lie.
Yeah.
And what you have to do every time is you have to ask her a question. She has to say a lie. Cosmo has to be like, just tell the truth. And then she's like, oh, well, yeah, maybe I did do this. And then you do it like 4 or 5 times in a row.
Right.
She also sells firecrackers to school children, telling him they can blow up the school with it. And then knocks to the teachers.
Right.
And then they get their fireworks confiscated and they have to come to her to buy more fireworks.
Right.
So it's a perfect system.
Win.
It's like weapons dealers.
If only they had some sort of distributed system by which we could tell who owns the fire. Anyway, so let's see here. Let's see.
So yeah, she took the pocket watch. And so you have to examine the pocket watch, and then it's the whole thing of like, oh, it's the old must have died at 5 p.m. when the thing was shattered.
Yep, it's my favorite thing where the watch is shattered. It stopped at 5 p.m. So that's how we know the time of death. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, the moment that the pocket watch comes out, Gina shows up on the stand to tell us that it's actually Gregson's pocket watch that he really loved because he got it from the Scotland Yard after he solved the big case 10 years ago. And always kept it on him, and he wound it up every day, every single day, never missed it.
Yeah. And so what we have to do is examine the pocket watch. Turns out there's a keyhole in the bottom. Whereas the key, if you'd examine the police figure, remember that's actually, that is a key. It pops out of the police figure's foot. And of course it fits. That's the way to do it. And if you wind it, turns out that no, the watch didn't break at the time of death because the watch was just... It had not been wound in a while, and had just, as soon as you use the key to wind it up, it starts working again. It works perfectly fine. It's shattered, but the watch part works.
The watch actually starts moving when you do it. Like there's an animation of the second hand starting going around. If you stay on the screen for 60 seconds, it stops. So the clock isn't actually working.
Oh, no. Well, I guess we just didn't wind it very much.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, what were you expecting? To sit there for like hours to make sure that it worked?
Well, to be fair, this is like Ryunosuke's like first like time in the world, so he probably has no idea how a pocket watch works. He's just like, I just did a little.
My point is that they didn't bother to code an entire walking clock animation in case someone stops on the screen.
Cowards. This is where resources should be allocated.
Exactly, they ran out of budget on this one.
Yeah, pretty lazy, Capcom. I guess they had to cut the budget for that.
It does exactly one full circle around the clock and then stops.
Yeah.
I love this because I think the watch stopping when you die is like one of the most prolific and also bad tropes. I think it makes no sense. So I'm thrilled that we're like, oh, obviously it's that. And then it's like, no, it just ran out.
Yeah.
Like, that's a stupid thing. Why would that happen? Though I think we've still done that, like, within this game.
Yeah. Although what it does do is it gives us more information that, like, well, this is a guy who always wound his watch, but in this case, he let it wind down, meaning it had been enough time where, like, more than a day would have gone by for it to actually, for him to not take care of his watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, which means that he was dead long before the assumed time of death. We point out that they didn't put the time of death on the autopsy report.
Yeah, it just says time of death, and then there's nothing printed there, and you just go to the next page, and it has a different header on the second page.
And then Ryunosuke goes, and you know why? Because he's still alive, ladies and gentlemen, Tobias Gregson, and he walks in, and everyone applauds, and that's the end of chapter 4. Hooray, happy ending. All right, well, that doesn't happen, but who would have been nice?
This is also where you can show the firecracker that you bought from Venus and be like, look, this thing, if you set it all off at once, it sounds like a gunshot. You actually set it off in the, if you sit, like, the part of the conversation is it sounds like this, and then, like, even though you did set it off, examining it during the conversation, everyone in court realizes that, oh yeah, this thing does sound like a gunshot.
And it's still in the court record.
we also have to explain, the witnesses said that they saw both men going into the building first, Gregson and then Van Zix. And turns out what they actually saw was someone with red hair, which we know was a wig, which anyone could have wore. So
Yeah.
we don't know that it was actually Gregson. And they also explained the entire trick about how they managed to get the fireworks going off at exactly that time, which is by tying it to the candlestick.
Naruhodo's like, one of the most important things that I've learned since coming here about England, since coming to England, is that you can blow up anything you want at any time.
He's like, oh, no. I mean, the important thing is at any time, meaning a time bomb.
It could have been a delayed action on the bomb.
Yeah. But actually, the solution here is pretty clever. That whoever it was tied about halfway through the candle, they tied the firecracker to it, and then lit all three candles. So when the one burns down to about halfway, that's what the gunshot is, and that's why it's got the scorch marks. Because if it was actually a bullet that had gone through Gregson into it, it wouldn't have left those scorch marks. This has to be something exploding right next to it. So,
isn't this how like alarm clocks used to work? Like you'd have a candle, and then you'd like put a metal, like some metal thing into like the time that you want, and when it burned down to there, the metal fell out and then made a clattering noise, and that was your alarm clock.
Whoa, I had no idea about that.
So I assume this is... I don't know exactly when that technology was in effect, but I mean, presumably before they had electricity, you gotta wake up at some point.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was just roosters, but yeah.
Sometimes you live in a city, I guess.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're in a city where you don't have roosters...
Oh, you get the Bobbies to do it. Remember? That was like their job, was to knock on all the windows.
Well, yeah, but how do they know when to wake up, Slowbeef?
They don't fucking sleep.
Bobby's all the way down.
They tie firecrackers to candles, all right? That was... All right, anyway.
So I think this is technology that they would have been familiar with in that time period. I think. I'm not a historian.
Yeah.
I just know there was an ABC show called Covington Cross, which like took place in medieval times. It's like Game of Thrones without any of like the violence or horrible stuff, because it was on ABC. But and that's how they told time, was they had like big like candles with like the hour marks on them. This is a plug for Covington Cross, by the way. So, anyway, so
yeah, but anyway, so the last thing that we sort of get to is that what was Gregson looking into. And because he's examining something here, and it has to be the thing that ties all this together is someone walked in with the red hair. There's this red hair piece that he was wearing, and so if you bring up either the Redheaded League article or the red hair piece, you will end up with there's proof that the people involved in this are somehow involved with the case, and the judge orders them produced. So now Kazuma has to, or the judiciary has to bring these people who were just arrested into the courtroom, and that's when we get our recess.
And that's the end of the reading, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, any predictions? Anybody knows what's going on here?
So I have not read ahead, but these constant references to the man with the twisted lip makes me think that Hugh Boone is Gregson. I'm wondering if Gregson is actually also married to this woman.
Yeah, like I compared those two photos a bunch, and it's like, I don't know, like Gregson definitely has like a squarer jaw, but he's also got like facial hair, and that can really like change the way you perceive someone's face.
No, but we know that her husband was a real person who was an actual warden in the prison, and Gregson wasn't. Gregson was also active at that time.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So
oh well.
how could they be the same person?
No, but the husband worked late.
Well, one of them is a waxwork.
No, but you can't do both. Yeah, oh well.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, they do say like, oh, they both sometimes had to take like overnight trips where no one knew where they were going. And he does have a photo of a younger version of her at his like secret hideout. So this is like, there's got to be something going on there. But like, because you get the photo of Gregson over the course of the case, so like you can directly compare those two. It's like that's not the same person.
Yeah.
So, my theory at the time is that Gregson is like doing a bunch of secret work to find the Reaper, has found the Reaper's office, is killed by the Reaper, and Von Zieks is being framed for it, right? That was my kind of theory here.
The only thing that I've got is I feel like the Redheaded League is like a red herring.
Yeah,
pun
I was
intended.
going to say,
Because like the Redheaded League has nothing to do with the Reaper, as far as we're aware. So I think
right.
they planted someone was like, we need a way to tie this to something, and so if they have the wig, they can tie it to that. If they put the wig on Gregson, that ties him to it, and then they pin the Redheaded League thing to the notice board, which is all about the Reaper except for this one article. That's my theory, is that somehow like it's all made up. This has nothing to do with the Redheaded League.
it's a red herring.
They've done this before, like the original thing with they're playing with an existing Holmes story to be like, oh, but it doesn't really mean anything, which is the first time they introduce Holmes and his explanation, which is an actual explanation for the Holmes case with the speckled band, and then they completely abandon that, in that story. And the same kind of thing I think is probably going to happen here. We're like, oh, we're going to introduce the Redheaded League to make you think we're going one direction, and then we're just completely abandon the Holmes canon and just go in our own sort of story here.
I was figuring, because of what do you call it? Jeez. Because they brought up the Redheaded League like kind of before with the pawnbroker. That's why I was kind of thinking like they probably won't do two things with it. So this is kind of, you know what I mean? Like why it's maybe kind of like a comic sort of thing more than anything super relevant,
Yeah. Also, another reference to the Redheaded League. That when Venus is saying that you tried to pawn off the watch, she said she tried to sell it to Jebez. Jebez Wilson is actually the person in the Redheaded League who's the pawnbroker. Or Jabez, yeah. So it's another, they're throwing one of their many references to these two stories again into this episode.
Gotcha. Do you want to know another theory that I had, which is a meta one? Mm-hmm. Because, this chapter ends on an investigation. I was trying to figure out how that could work. I was thinking maybe, no, I guess I won't say anything just because I know, but it's like, I was thinking maybe something will happen where this trial can't finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not that it's going to be like chapter 1-2 where like it ends with like that kind of thing, but like something bad's going to happen to like, Von Zieks or Cosimo or both or whatever. You know what I mean? But like, yeah. So that was my other theory, but we haven't recorded in a little bit, so I had a lot of time to think of stuff. Anyhow, speaking of, I think for next time, we might as well close out the chapter here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. So tune in next time when we close out the chapter. All right. Well, until then, ladies and gentlemen, have a good one.